16 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is the Drive Time News Hour. We're in the second quarter hour, and we're going right up till 6 o'clock tonight here on the Mighty 790. Stan Tekeila is a frequent, but not frequent enough in my estimation, guest here on the Drive Time News Hour, and we're always glad to get as many minutes in with him as we can. Stan, welcome back to KFGO.
Hi, Jack. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well. Stan is a naturalist, a wildlife photographer, writer, birds of, name a state, like North Dakota, and trees of, and for more than 35 or more years, he's been out there with his trusty camera and taking pictures. And we've talked recently of your trip to Alaska and your most recent column at naturesmart.com. I recommend that website. Make it a favorite. You talked about while you were down there photographing beluga, whale, and polar bears, but you also caught the aurora borealis. Tell us about that experience and what is entailed in getting the sort of pictures that you get.
Well, there's a number of ways of photographing the northern lights or the aurora borealis, and that is the first way I do it is a standard tripod with a DSLR type camera, so the newer type cameras, and then you're simply putting it on about a 800 ISO, which makes the sensor in there fairly sensitive, but not too sensitive. And then you set it so that it has about a 3 to 5 second exposure. So in other words, the exposure opens up, and for 3 to 5 seconds, it exposes that sensor, which is at about 800 ISO, and you get your picture that way. That's kind of the first way of getting it, and you can take a lot of pictures that way. The other way to do it is by doing time-lapse photography, and I usually do this with a separate camera, and you set it up so that camera takes one picture every 3 seconds over, say, a half hour or an hour period of time, and then you take all of those pictures and you put them together, and you get like a moving picture, like a video, if you will, but it's all just pictures flashing in front of you.
In your latest tour, you've said in your column that you drove about 20 minutes to get to a site, and a very important part of it all to get, I guess, perspective is to have something in the foreground or background.
Yeah. So as a photographer, I'm always about perspective, and you got to have something else in the frame to get your mind to think about and put it in perspective. And so I always try to have something in the foreground, like a tree or a building or something, anything that can kind of give you some perspective as to what it is you're looking at. I was just photographing squirrels in my backyard, jumping from one kind of perch to another perch, and I was catching them in midair. But when I looked at those pictures, it was missing a perspective. It was missing kind of where they're going. So I set it up so that I could get the squirrels like either coming off of a perch or landing on a perch, and then it puts perspective to the picture, and then you've got a more understandable image.
I imagine, what time of day? Could you set your watch as to when you should be out there ready to photograph
for the northern lights?
Yep.
Believe it or not, there's really nice apps you get for your phone, and it'll tell you if we have it's called a KP kind of alert, and it'll tell you how good it's going to be, and then it'll also tell you at what time. I mean, is it right after dark? Is it at midnight? Is it at 2 o'clock in the morning? Whatever it may be. So there's several of these apps out there, and they're well worth getting, so that you can kind of predict and then go out and be able to see. And of course, the big trick is to get out into a dark area away from the city and any kind of lights, and you're going to see them better than you would, in the city, of course.
Well, you were probably among the very best spots to shoot those pictures.
Yeah, so the kind of the best place is Fairbanks, Alaska, is one of the best places for northern lights, and there's a lot of people who kind of gravitate to that area in the wintertime. I was in Manitoba, northern Manitoba, Canada, and that's where I was photographing them at. And so really it all depends on the time of year. We see them more in the wintertime than we do in the summertime, but you can see them at any time of year.
Do you have to worry about your lenses getting frost, or how do you make sure the snow or whatever may be flying through the air doesn't get onto your lenses?
Generally not. What you have to worry about is your batteries draining very quickly because you're using these long exposures and the temperatures are usually very cold. So the camera's cold and the batteries are cold, and it usually drains out the batteries pretty quick. So you end up having to bring extra batteries with you, have them in your pocket to keep them warm, and then you're going to be all set to go.
Okay, Stan Tequila is available on Instagram, right?
Yes.
And I follow you on Facebook. I'm an
Yep.
old-fashioned guy, and
Mhm.
www.naturesmart.com. And his books are available all over the place, including locally. Tekiela. Stan Tekeila. Thank you for joining us again, Stan. We look forward to the next chat.
Thanks, Jack. Talk to you next time.
KFGO time, 5:22.